Perfect. Lovely. Great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ron. Thanks for your kind introduction. Let me just start by sharing my screen. Oops, screen sharing is not allowed. Can I get permission to share screen, please?
Absolutely. One moment. Yep, you should be able to do that now, or...
Right. Can you see my screen?
Yes, thanks.
Lovely. So we are going to talk about agility and security. This session is not going to be a presentation or a monologue. I would like to make it as interactive as possible. So how many are we? I think we're like 16 people. It's a very small group. We can have an interactive workshop style session. So my request from you is, if possible, if you are in a situation where you can turn your camera on, that would be lovely, because then we can, see each other and talk in a dialogue style rather than me having a monologue and present. So if you can, if your internet bandwidth permits, or if you're in a location where you can share your screen, please do that too. Sorry, not share your screen, turn your camera on. Please do that too, and we make it more fun and more interactive. I hope at least a few people turn their camera on and it's not just me and Ron. Okay. So a little bit about myself. I have, my background is technology. I used to be a programmer, software engineer, and I moved to product. I was product owner for a cybersecurity team. Actually, it was a compliance. We were using NIST 853 for an American client, which you might be familiar. FedRAMP is an equivalent of IRAP, compliance framework for federal agencies in the US. And then after that, I went back to being an engineering manager, and then I moved to Agile. And since then, I've been in Agile coaching. Recently, past 2 years, actually, I have been working with non-technology teams. So I have been working with business operations, call centers, financial advisors, and people and culture, HR, basically. So it's really interesting to see how Agile and these concepts can be applied to non-technology environment, and also to risk and audit as well. So, right, before we get started, I have a question for you. You're all in cybersecurity, risk, or audit, right? So when you go out, you're having a beer with someone and they ask you, what do you do? What's your day job? And you tell them, I'm in cybersecurity or risk and audit. What's that you usually get? What type of vibe do you get from them? What's the perception of the industry from people like you? Let's hear from a few people.
I'll go. Yeah, you're a nerd, a hacker, whatever it is, from that side of things.
Exactly. Do they ask you, where's your hoodie?
Sorry, didn't quite catch that. Ask what?
Do you get a question, where is your hoodie? Or do you wear a hoodie at work?
Yeah, pretty. Yeah, those sorts of things. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. There's this perception about cybersecurity that that's what we do, right? It's hoodies, it's green screens, code, anonymous, and you just go on Google and type. That's what I did. I just went in Google Images and typed cybersecurity, and I got a bunch of images which came up, and that was pretty much it, right? So that's a perception, but we all know that it's not, right? That's one tiny, like 1% of the work that we do involves. It may not even involve green screen or anything like that. It probably doesn't even involve a hoodie at all, or talking with someone with a hoodie. So what we want to do is we want to have a holistic view. A lot of times, the way that our organizations are structured, it's based on silos, right? We have technology, even within technology, we have multiple silos. We got our first line, second line, which could be even a different division completely. Third line audit could be completely, even reporting to a different chief in the company. But the truth is, it's all interconnected, right? And unless we have a holistic view, it's an interdisciplinary practice. Risk and audit and cybersecurity are interdisciplinary practices, and we really need to have that holistic view. So to have that holistic view, I mean, we talk about holistic view and cross-functional teams and things like that, but really what we need is a holistic perspective. So what I'm going to talk about next is a concept called systems thinking. Systems thinking is a concept which gives us that holistic perspective so we can see the bigger picture. Now, anyone's familiar with systems thinking? Who here has heard this word before? Systems thinking? I know Ron has. Anyone else?
Yeah, sure. Yep.
Great, great. So I see at least one more person has heard about it. So systems thinking, to better understand what we mean by systems thinking, we need to know what's a system. So that's my question to you. What is a system? How do you define a system?
Well, it's got inputs and outputs.
Right, absolutely. What else? Can you give me some examples?
Well, a car.
Yes, absolutely. A car is a system. What else?
Digestive system?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Digestive system. I just had some food and late lunch. It's 3 p.m. at Melbourne. I had late lunch like half an hour ago, and my digestive system is now sending signals to my nervous system. So feeling a bit sleepy. So it'd be good if, we interact a bit more. What else?
Political system.
Political system, absolutely, absolutely. There's all these systems, and systems can be a subsystem of another system, right? So if you look up in the dictionary, you'll get something like a system is a collection of components that are organized in a network, and they all interact, and together these components, they make a bigger whole, right? It may or may not process an input to an output. It probably will, but they all make this bigger whole. So of course, you gave us some examples. There's some more examples here. We got a software system, a computer system, right? That's a system. We got the digestive system, as Louisa was saying, right? And as we said, systems can be subsystems of bigger systems. So digestive system can be part of the human body, which is a bigger system, right? So Elon Musk is a system, right? He's a person, he's got a body, so he's a system. A person can be part of a family or a team, right? That's our bigger system. The team itself can be part of an organization. The organization is part of the society. The society is part of the Earth ecosystem. The Earth ecosystem is part of the solar system, right? The solar system is part of the galaxy. And then the galaxy is part of the universe. And then the universe is part of, I don't know, something bigger, right? So maybe someone is dreaming up there. So there's all these systems within systems within systems. And basically the idea with systems thinking is you take a step back and look at your holistic system. So if you look in this image, we have an ecosystem, which is clearly made up of all these subsystems, like the precipitation system, the tourism industry, recreation industry. Is this food chain happening here? There's this illusion low pressure system, whatever that is, I don't even know. Freshwater systems and fisheries and blah blah blah. These are all the subsystems, right? And even each one of those subsystems are made up of smaller subsystems. Like the tourism industry is made up of individual cruise ships, right? Which are then in turn made up of all the components that make it, like the engine and the propeller and whatever, and even the teams that run the ship, like the navigation team or the people within those teams. There's all these systems and subsystems involved, right? Systems thinking is when you're solving a problem, you take a step back and look at the whole. Look at the entirety of what you're solving rather than focusing on that particular component, right? And then there is two different types of thinking that we use in systems thinking and in general, right? We've got analytical thinking and synthetic thinking. So analysis and synthesis. Analysis is when you're breaking something apart to its component and understanding those parts. For example, let's say you have a car, right? You want to understand why the car goes to the left when you turn the steering wheel to the left, why it goes to the right when you turn the steering wheel to the right. You analyze it, you break it apart. There's this shaft going down, there are gears, or these gears are connected to each other, and you understand the components, build up that understanding to understand the whole, right? Synthesis is the opposite of that. Synthesis is looking at the interactions of our object of interest within its ecosystem. So for example, if you have a car and you want to know why the steering wheel of the car is on the right side of the car in Australia, but left side of the car in the US, your answer is not in the car, right? You can't find that answer by analyzing the car and the steering wheel. The answer is outside the car. It's in how the car was introduced, history, socioeconomy, things like that, right? So that's synthetic, that's synthesis, basically, looking outside. So another example, if you look at this diagram here, like this image, we got this school of fish here, right? And you probably have seen in these what's it called, documentaries like David Attenborough. They talk about, they show school of fish and they make all these funny movements. If you want to understand how that school of fish moves, using analysis, you look inside. You look at each individual fish. Where are they going? What are they doing? What's their behavior? Are they going up, down, left, right? And then by understanding the movement of each individual fish, then you understand the movement of the whole, right? That's reductionism, right? Basically going to the components. Now, synthesis is looking outside. For example, is there a predator coming in? Is there a food source? Are there dolphins trying to get these fish? Is there, birds coming out from outside trying to get, and then try to understand the movement of the school based on those external forces and factors, which probably is going to be a bit more effective in this situation rather than going and individually analyzing millions and millions of fish in that school of fish, right? We need both. We need both in systems thinking. Usually, most often in companies, we focus a lot more on analysis, not enough on synthesis, right? We need to shift our focus a little bit more towards that synthesis and looking at the context and the ecosystem. So I'm going to give you an example. Right, this is the story about snakes, cobras, in early 19th century in India, in the city of Delhi, right? So this is during the colonial times, and there is, for whatever reason, there is this surge of cobra population in Delhi. And the British officials, they want to fix the problem, right? So they say, okay, fair enough, this is not rocket science, right? We've got too many snakes, too many cobras, we want to get rid of those cobras. How about we introduce a bounty? Anyone who kills a cobra, they can bring in the dead cobra and collect, I don't know, X dollars or X sterling pounds or whatever. Fair enough, people started killing cobras and collecting the cash, and cobra population started going down a little bit. But then something happened. some people realize, well, we can make good money here, right? So let's start breeding cobras. Now suddenly we have these people who have cobra breeding facilities, and they're breeding cobras there and then killing those cobras and going and collecting the cash. And then the British officials found out, said, okay, this is clearly not working. Let's shut down the program. Mistake again, because now all those cobra breeders, they let go of their cobras. And suddenly we end up with more snakes than we started with. So the solution actually made the problem worse. Now, I have a question for you. This is clearly lack of systems thinking. Now, what would you do if you had a time machine and you were transported back into early 19th century and you were asked to fix this problem? What would you do? What would be your approach using systems thinking to fix this problem?
Try and understand why there's so many cobras.
That's a very good question to start with, to understand why is it. So what else should we understand? Actually, even before understanding about why there are so many cobras, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? What is the problem that we're trying to solve?
How to get rid of the cobras, reduce the numbers.
What's wrong with so many cobras?
Hazard to the community.
That's right. That's a problem. The problem is people are getting injured or getting killed or they're casualties, right? That's a real problem. But the problems that those British officials solved for was the number of snakes, which is similar but not necessarily the same problem, right? By focusing on the wrong problem, they immediately eliminated a whole host of possible solutions. What else could they have done?
Educate people.
Yeah, educate, absolutely. What else? So the problem is people are getting injured or killed. You could educate them. What else could you do to fix that problem? It's a healthcare issue, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, I was gonna say treatment. Probably a bit early for anti-venom. I don't know, but yeah.
Absolutely. Antivenoms. So education, antivenoms, how to deal with cobras. You see a cobra go the other way. It could be like cobra-proof boots being distributed. It's like a whole host of possible solutions we could have, but we didn't look at the right problem. Now, Einstein said, if I had a problem that I wanted to solve and I had only 1 hour to solve it and my life depended on that problem, I would spend 55 minutes understanding the problem and only 5 minutes coming up with a solution, right? So step number 1, understand what the problem is. Step number 2, now we want to come up with a solution. We need to have a cross-functional group, a diverse group. Who would you involve?
Experts who understand cobra behavior.
Absolutely. Experts who understand cobra behavior. Who else?
Maybe medical professionals from the treatment side of things.
Absolutely.
Town planners, cities. Is there a way we can design a town or where we live so we don't have to interact with the cobras so much?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Who else?
The couple popped up the chat.
Come on, guys, you can speak. Let's have it, make it interactive.
People have been attacked by cobras.
Definitely.
Because you want to know what, get some idea how they're being attacked, what caused the attack, what they were doing, things like that.
Absolutely. People with first-hand experience who've been attacked, and community leaders. Absolutely. So in short, you need everyone, right? You need economists, you need political scientists, you need environmentalists, you need everyone, right? It's a cross-disciplinary subject. And we need diversity of thought. So systems thinking is about seeing the whole, right? Every person has their own individual perspective. Every person sees the universe through their own eyes, through their own filter, through their own life experiences, training, culture, everything that makes that person who they are, right? So we need diversity of thought to have different perspective, different views, so we can roll up this understanding from different perspective and see the whole, right? A lot of times, when we talk about diversity in companies, we say, yeah, we want to be fair to people who are from different communities or disadvantaged or whatever. Yeah, sure, that's true. But selfishly, for business, it's actually good for business, because we can have diversity of thought, we can have different perspective and attack the problem from different angles, right? Which is essential. And of course, we need to understand the unforeseen consequences of our decisions. So number one, understand the problem. Number two, involve diversity, like interdisciplinary group of people. Number three, understand the unforeseen consequences of your decisions, right? So let's say we get rid of all the cobras, what could go wrong?
Well, they might have some useful purpose that we're not aware of, and could end up with another problem.
Rats, mice,
Rats,
those
yeah.
sorts of things.
Yeah.
You get a plague outbreak because you've got rid of all the cobras.
On the spot, absolutely. You may end up with something worse. You may have a plague outbreak, right? There's all sorts of things that could go wrong if we, get rid of it. Actually, I did some research. It turns out that cobras eat pit vipers, right? And pit viper is a very dangerous snake. I don't know. Maybe you have a new snake which is even more deadly and more dangerous than cobra, and they reproduce even more, and you could end up with that, right? And of course, you can end up with a rat plague or a mouse plague and all sorts of issues, right? So we need to think ahead in long term, our consequences of decisions over time and space, right? So now you have a general understanding of systems thinking. Any questions or comments so far?
So probably an apt one for Australia. Our history of introducing animals. Cane toad, Exhibit A, is a classic case where they didn't do this thinking.
Absolutely. Cane toads, rabbits and foxes, everything. So many things in Australia follow this pattern. Right. Now, next I'm going to talk about this guy, Deming, Edward Deming. Anyone familiar with Deming? Right. I see Ron nodding, but maybe some other people are as well. So Deming was management thought leader, and he was part of the convoy from the US who went to Japan after World War II to help rebuild the Japan, after the devastation of all the atomic bombs and the whole war, how Japan was destroyed. The Americans sent this convoy, including Deming, to Japan, and Deming had all these crazy ideas before going to Japan about how management should be done, but then no one paid attention to him until he went to Japan, and he became really famous in Japan. And actually, his ideas resonated really well with the Japanese business and culture, right? So he became famous, and then once he came back to the US, people started paying attention to him. You could argue he's one of the fathers of the lean movement and influenced the Toyota way and things like that. Now, I have 3 quotes here from Deming. We ask people to do their best. The problem is that they are already doing their best, right? And everything that I'm talking about is going to become very clear how it relates to cybersecurity in a minute. So bear with me. They're all very relevant to cybersecurity. We ask people to do their best. The problem is they're already doing their best. It also says a bad system will defeat a good person every time. People will do all they can to survive in a bad system. No one really wakes up in the morning saying, I want to go to work today and I'm going to do a bad job. I'm going to go to work and I'm going to break all the laws, right? No one really does that way of thinking. But we end up with so many laws being broken, so many bad products and services, so many issues, so many vulnerabilities, so many risks and everything, right? The problems are with the persons. Oh, sorry, the problems are with the systems, not with the people. And I want to give you an example. In about 2017, if I'm not mistaken, I'm from Melbourne. Here in Melbourne, Victoria, we had this massive thing where the police, we had this controversy, massive controversial thing where the police, they actually gamed the breathalyzer test results of about 250,000 breath tests. So over a 10-year period, the police, instead of just hanging out in the middle of the night waiting for cars to come blowing the breathalyzers, they're just blowing it themselves a few times to meet their quotas, and then they would head home. It was found out, it was this massive controversy, it was all over the news. And one morning I was driving to work and I was listening to the radio, and there's this police commissioner, there's this journalist grilling the police commissioner. Who is going to pay over this scandal? Who is going to lose their job over this scandal? And then I was yelling back at the radio, well, it doesn't bloody matter, because whoever else you put in those positions, they're going to make the exact same mistakes, right? It's not the people, it's the systems, it's the quotas that are driving those behaviors. So Deming says 90, he was also a statistician. So he knows, when he talks about numbers, I really trust him. 96% of the problems are caused by the system. Only 4% are the type of problems that you provide more training or replace that person and the problem is going to be solved. Imagine that. 95% versus 4%. Sorry, 96% versus 4%. That's crazy. So you can learn from the Victorian police actually here. Right. Now, let's bring it down back to cybersecurity. What are some of the unforeseen consequences of risk controls that you've seen before? So let's hear from the room. Have a think. What are some of unforeseen consequences that you've seen? Someone's put in a risk control, or you've put in a risk control, and it resulted in a behavior that you weren't expecting.
Very lengthy delays.
Yep, sorry, carry on, Marie.
Very lengthy delays.
Lengthy delays, yep, absolutely. So the processes that we put in place create silos or create queues which delay things, absolutely. What else?
Did some work at a place that had implemented a driver monitoring system for all the vehicles, cars and everything on site. It had, you had basically clocked on, clocked off with a fob. And what people then did was, because someone would then lose the fob or whatever it was, people just basically put the fobs in the glove box, and people rummaged around, grabbed whatever fob was in the glove box, put it in. So you weren't tracking individuals. You potentially, the system then said someone was working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, because they were just using the one fob rather than the individual ones. So yeah, your stats, the purpose for having the fobs and monitoring driver behavior and accountability just went out the door, because it was one, as far as the system was concerned, it was one driver doing all the driving.
Absolutely. Great story. Definitely. How about in cybersecurity? Any examples or stories you want?
Well, in the classic ones, passwords. We all know, probably on this call, you're not supposed to reuse passwords. They're supposed to be uppercase, lowercase, squiggles, dashes, but you can't remember them all, so you just make them all the same. I'd be guilty of that on a few things.
Yep. Absolutely. I do the same. Or this, right? Where is it? Just put it on a sticky note and place it on the monitor. I've seen this so many times, right? You have these complex rules, passwords, and some of them are really complex. And then you see people placing them. I've seen them. Has anyone else seen things like this?
Yep. Just have a look around the office now.
Exactly. I have a few more examples I can share with you, but I want to hear from other people. Has anyone got any stories in cybersecurity? Similar stories?
I think most people are having their lunch behind the screen, so they can't talk.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I'll tell you a few examples, but then everyone feel free to jump in and share your stories as well. Right, this is from Troy Hunt. Anyone knows Troy Hunt?
Yeah.
Have I Been Pawned website? So he's the guy who created Have I Been Pawned? And this is 2019 in the York conference. He's really an entertaining speaker, and yeah, that's a really interesting example. You know, you got to change your password 4 times a year, right? Every 3 months. So what people end up doing is just they increase the number, right? Everyone, and then if you get this number divided by 4, you can actually know how long that person has been in the company. It's really easy to, you know, it defeats the purpose basically of having to change your password, because just keep increasing the number every time. I mean, I have another example here, which is actually creating complexity. Mark pointed out, Murray pointed out delays, possible delays, right? You increase complexity by your controls, and have we considered actually what is it that are the unforeseen consequences of our controls in other parts of the business across time and space, right? It could pop up anywhere else. And I have this example is from NBN, and this is a true story. When I worked at NBN, we had BYOD devices, right? I think something over 80% of the workforce were contractors. The department or NBN wasn't providing laptops to contractors, and these are software engineers. They all bring their own devices, and we had hard-coded passwords in the code. So we had hard-coded passwords. As an example, something I personally saw was the SMS system that send out SMSs, right? And we had hard-coded password for that system in the code on BYOD devices on contractors, right? And contractors could terminate any time. We had so many times on a Friday, people were told that's your last day, you know, go home. No need to come in on Monday. And of course, those passwords go home with them, right, on their devices. Right. Now I have a tool here, which is called value stream mapping. This tool is used in DevOps quite extensively. So if you're going to do a DevOps transformation, you need to map the value stream. These are steps in the process. Sorry, Ron, how much time do we have?
You have 15 minutes left.
Great. So this is a classic example. It's a hypothetical value stream. You know, we have a request for a change coming in. We will email a manager, wait for approval for a week. The manager spends an hour to approve it. Then, you know, send it to a solution architect to do their assessment and design. It's going to wait in the queue for 2 weeks. Solution architect picks it up, does the assessment. Then we assign it to a delivery team. Again, wait for 2 weeks for delivery team to pick it up. Now, usually we got coders and testers working together. So if you're lucky, you know, if it's Agile team, so they can, you know, relatively quickly in 1 day or so, they code it and test it. And then we send it to security to review. We're going to wait for a week for cyber to do their review. And if hopefully they give us the okay to proceed to production release, then we're going to assign it to the production operations team, wait for them for a week until they do their, I don't know, weekly release or whatever, and then it's deployed, right? This whole process takes 5 weeks and 3 days, right? The takt time, the real time, cycle time spent on it is like how long? 8 plus 4 plus 2. That's 15 hours. How many hours? 5, 8, 13, yeah, like 15, 16 hours. It's about 2 days of work. 2 days of work in total, spread across 7 weeks and 3 days, 7.5 weeks. First question for you, what could go wrong here when you see this value stream?
The approval people are on holidays.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many delays. And look at it from a risk perspective. What are some of the risks that we have here? We got delivery risk, but also think about like cyber risk and things like that.
I mean, the cyber tech or the security review coming in late in the piece, if they have to, go back, rework, to anything they find, you're back potentially at the approval stage.
Absolutely. Now, if you're lucky, that will happen. If you're unlucky, like when I was at NBN, what would happen is security is going to say, no, you can't release this. But then
they get overruled.
Exactly. You got some really important political person say, no, we have to release this, right? And you get security exemption. Yeah, all sorts of stuff like that would happen. So now, typical solution that people go to is, let's say you're the head of architect team. You're the chief solution architect. And the CEO comes to you and says, well, this 2 weeks of lead time, your queue is very long. I'm going to give you as much money as you want. Just make sure you find a way to double your delivery speed and, half that queue. What's the typical solution people go to?
Double your headcount.
Absolutely. Yep. They hire more people, double your headcount. But then what ends up happening is, in the perfect world, assuming your headcount is doubled and you can half this 2 weeks to 1 week, well, you're actually now creating a new bottleneck here because your output is doubled as well. So these 2 weeks becomes 4 weeks. So you cut down 1 week from here, you added 2 weeks here because your code and test capacity hasn't increased. So you've created a bottleneck in the next step, actually, that will increase the total to 8 weeks instead of reducing it. So when we are optimizing the components of a system, we may make that one component better, but it could mean the entire system is now worse off. What's the solution? How would you solve this issue? I mean, that's a reality in many, many companies. What's the solution to this situation that we have, which has high risk?
Optimize the whole system.
How would you do that?
By breaking and looking at each system individually and seeing how they interact with each other and how you could improve all the steps through the process.
Right. So in theory, you're correct, but I want a more specific answer.
No, I don't know what a more specific answer is, but that's just my view.
That's correct. That's holistically, you're correct. But basically, physically, I think what you need to do is you need to bring people together, right?
Yep.
Create that cross-functional team. Because this is 2 days of work. So in theory, you can pick one unit of work, one request, take it through all these steps one after another if everyone is sitting next to each other. You take it first to the manager. Can you approve it? Manager is going to spend an hour reading it. Yep, sure, approved. Then you take it to the architect. Can you design it? Yep, they're going to spend 2 hours designing it. Done. Move it to the next one. So in theory, this whole variation can be dropped to 2 days, right? Of course, that's not economical, right? Because we want to optimize utilization as well. But there is no reason why we shouldn't be able to bring a cross-functional group of people, bring in cybersecurity early, get people together periodically to do these cross-functional activities. It's an interdisciplinary piece of work, right? Does it make sense? And that's pretty, sorry?
Yeah, so yes, it makes sense.
Great. And that's what a lot of companies do. I mean, that's pretty much what Amazon does. They have that ultimate cross-functional DevOps team, which includes all the capabilities. So Amazon does this entire thing in 24 hours. So 24 hours is the lead time from request coming in up until release to production. And it's, you know, completely cross-functional, including cyber. This is, of course, an example value stream. You know, if you physically are doing value stream mapping, there are some technicalities to it, like you could measure different types of efficiency, like flow efficiency, persons completed and accurate, and things like that. And that's going to give you, you know, in this example, we got 37% and 38% efficiency. Right. And of course, shifting left, that's really important, because with cybersecurity, it's, what we call, if you test it at the end, quality, good or bad, is already in the system. It's too late. If it's a vulnerable, if there are vulnerabilities in the system, we're testing this already too late. What we need to do is we need to get involved earlier on, so that we can ensure high cybersecurity quality is built into the system. Now, I'm going to give you some martial arts cybersecurity lessons from martial arts. I'm into martial arts. I love Taekwondo and kickboxing. That's my photo, winning the gold medal. But it doesn't sound very cyber relevant, right? So I wanted to make it a bit more relevant to cybersecurity. So first thing we need some anonymous masks, right? Then we need to make it a bit more green, right? And finally, we add the matrix style digits on top of it. Now it's more cybersecurity, right? So what can we learn from martial arts? There's this concept called shu-ha-ri. And shu basically means when you start learning martial arts, you start at the shu level. You're learning the basics, the basic movements, right? Ha means you're progressing through your color birds. Now you're about black belt. Now you can break the rules a little bit. Shu means follow the rules. Ha means break the rules. So you start experimenting a little bit with the rules. And then Ri, that's the, you know, grandmaster level. You're 8th Dan or 9th Dan, and you have your own style basically, and you have come up with a new way of basically doing things. But then you see all these really, really old masters, like that Karate Kid movie, right? That they say really stupid things like follow your heart, or the answers are within you, and, you know, all those crazy stuff, right? That's what we call a kokoro.
Wax on, wax off.
Absolutely, wax on and wax off. So at the end of the day, he's coming and saying karate is just wax on and wax off, right? So brilliance in basics. So if you just teach people to wax on and wax off, they know how to use these movements, right? When it comes to, if you watch the movie Karate Kid, you know what I'm talking about, right? So what are some basics that we can take out of today's conceptual presentation that can help us better on cybersecurity and risks, right? Of course, you know, you can start applying some of those Scrum practices and Agile practices, like visualizing your work, making sure the type of work that you're doing is either on a Kanban board or on a dashboard, or whichever way that is relevant to you to visualize your work. Of course, we've got all these risk systems where you're submitting your risk and you have all your controls and everything, but they are what we call information refrigerators. They are not information radiators, right? It's like a top-loading freezer. You got to open it up, go and find what you're looking for, take it out, let it defrost, then you can consume it. It's hard to find information there. You have to spend effort to find information. Information radiator is something like a physical board. You're walking in the office, you see a board, you spend 20 seconds, you know exactly what's going on there, right? So visualize your work. Utilize information radiators. Manage and reduce your WIP, work in progress. So the more work in progress we have, the more context switching that we have, and things take longer and quality is reduced, right? Go to the work. This is very interesting. Go to the work is a lot of people they call also Gamba. You may have heard about the word Gamba. So it's basically the idea that you spend time with people who do the work. I personally spend time, like, for example, I go to the call center, I ask people in the call center, can I sit next to you and just observe you in your natural habitat for a day? Yeah, sure, come here, have a seat. I spend time with financial advisors, with support, some various people in the company. I go and sit next to them and just see. A few weeks ago, I spent time with a first-line technology risk person, as he had, he was managing all the risk, and he was having his meetings, risk control meetings with people who identify the risk. He was checking if the controls are in place. So I was sitting next to him and observing him one by one. A really good example of it is CEO of ANZ, Shane Elliott, right? This guy has got 50,000 people reporting to him, right? When I was at ANZ, I saw actually him sitting next to our solution architect, and our solution architect teaching him how Kubernetes works. So he was actually teaching him how to deploy Docker environments using Kubernetes. This is the CEO of ANZ learning how to deploy Docker environments. It's just so much learning and empathy when you spend time seeing people work in their natural habitat. And of course, a few other things like deliver demo regularly and iteratively, reflect regularly, every 2 weeks, get together with your team and think about what went well, what went bad, how to improve, engage laterally. So go talk with your colleagues who are far in the company. Shift left. Cybersecurity needs to be involved early on, and risk as well. Engage early and often. Don't wait until the project comes to you. Go and approach them proactively. And of course, teach and coach. Which brings us to the end of the session. Now, if you're interested to learn more, our company Sprint Agile, we do have safe courses, certified safe courses. I have coming up in the next 3 months, I have Safe Agilist, Safe Release Train Engineer, and Safe DevOps. If you're interested, please reach out. You all get 20% off. And this is a new course that I have launched recently. The first one is going to be held in December. It's a Leadership in the New World certified course. Any questions or comments?
No questions. Last time, questions for Arash.
Why'd you get rid of the Mo?
Well, really good question. I had it for 5 years, and I felt it's time to change a little bit, right? Kind of got sick of it after 5 years. Maybe in 5 years I'll regret again.
All right. Arash, thank you very much on behalf of ISACA Perth. And yeah, hope to see you soon again. And if you're in Perth, let me know.
Thank you. Everyone, please feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. We'd love to connect with you all, and hope you enjoyed the session, and hope I'll see you again.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.